here, breaking the grade live. And I will start off kind of on a negative. We've had some technical issues over the last 2 times meeting. And, Brent, who is somebody I have love, has given me tough love on this whole thing. So I said, you know what? Instead of not having Brent join through LinkedIn, I'm just going to bring the guy in. And this way, he can't not make it. So we've got Brent Newton from myOwl. We've got John Gamba, of course, from the University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School of Education joining us. And we're going to talk about Brent's show. And Ken, maybe you can tell me in the private chat that we are good and we are live while Brent and John are introducing themselves. The topic today is how to package and position your products and services so they sell with more ease. And Brent is now an expert on that because he is in selling mode. Brent, tell us about yourself. Tell us about myOwl, and where the heck is your co-founder?
So we'll start with that latter part. So I co-founded myOwl with my 12-year-old daughter, and I would have been okay with pulling her out of school. Actually, hopefully her principal's not listening. I would have been okay with that, but she made the middle school soccer team, and they are in full practice mode, getting ready for their game schedule that starts next week. So she was not able to join us today, but as I know you two are both sports fans, hopefully you will forgive her on this one. So Talia and I started myOwl a few years ago as a way to solve a problem we were having in our own house. And that was trying to navigate this maze of technology that kids have to deal with. And initially I wanted it to be a parent app because I wanted to solve it. I was being selfish and I wanted to solve the problem for me. But then as we dove into it, we saw that it was a much bigger problem for students than it was for parents. And so, Talia came aboard, and she is very good at giving the student perspective on things. And then I start talk about the parent perspective, and it's been a great journey. It's been a ton of fun.
Josh, I thought when you were going to open today's conversation with bad news, we were going to talk about the Commanders.
That's why I laughed, because I figured he was going there too. But
I thought he was going to go there. And also we want to talk about Reggie Jackson being Mr. October and Dak Prescott being Mr. September. How about that? Does that sound good?
Wow. Those are excellent topics.
I'm just kidding. I had a straight face there. I don't have a straight face because I don't want to get into how Jalen Hurts is going to break our hearts as we push forward. So I know that that's going to happen as well. But there we go. Brent, I have a question for you on a serious note, because I love myOwl, and I love the founding story, and I love the go-to-market strategy, and I love how you have your daughter inextricably involved as a co-founder. But I've never heard, and maybe I just missed it, tell me about myOwl. I think wisdom. I think smarts, but tell me about the actual name myOwl before we get into signature solution, value proposition, and how it's being positioned.
We one of Talia's tasks was to help us come up with a name when we first came up with this, and she had a bunch of different ones, but she liked the idea of an owl, and I'm not sure she actually realized that that is something that is sort of associated with education and learning and wisdom and those sorts of things. And so it just seemed to be a really good fit. And since we're talking about something that's built for primarily for these students, we thought, well, why not call it yours? Like, this is mine. This is myOwl. This is my dashboard. This is my tool that's going to help me get my homework done. And so it just sort of flowed from there.
It's awesome. I love that.
Before we go any further, most people know you in this world, John, but maybe you could just give an introduction to who you are as well.
Yeah, really quick. And big fans of both of yours. John Gamba, entrepreneur in residence and director of innovative programs at Penn's Graduate School of Education, where we advance impact, innovation, and equity in worldwide education through a continuum of programming, entrepreneur in residence hours, our Milken Penn GSE business plan competition, now in its 16th year after this week, and various other programs where we provide mentorship to edtech companies. Much of that edtech mentorship centers around some of the things that we're talking about, which is positioning, go-to-market strategy, product market fit, how to position yourselves really well in LinkedIn, working with advisors and experts like Josh and the Ed Sales Elevation project and experience for doing that in a super intentional way. So that's a little bit of background on us.
And you guys had a big week.
We did. We had our 15th annual Milken competition in New York as part of the Holland IQ Back to School Summit. 7 companies competed for $250,000 in real cash prizes. We had 3 winners, which was fantastic. And we're excited about, building on that growth. We've supported 1,500 entrepreneurs from 50 plus countries and now 7 continents. We have our first venture from Antarctica, which is pretty cool. And we're pushing forward, and we're really excited about the work we do and supporting companies like myOwl.
That's great. And
I don't know how you guys do it. I've been following the competition for a few years, and there are just so many quality companies who enter into that. So well done on that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Those companies have gone from the outhouse to the penthouse, or at least the Penn Graduate School of Education penthouse, at least. But Brent, they also started, from day one. So talk about the early struggles, please, of myOwl and kind of getting it going. One of the quotes from our show in Breaking the Grade was that you said we felt stuck in a rut. We had a great product, but we couldn't get our message across to the schools and ed tech companies we needed to work with. It was super frustrating. So can you talk about the early struggles?
Yeah. So, we went out to a lot of different parents and teachers and students and sort of canvassed them to talk about what their frustrations around homework, the primary frustrations that they had. And then sort of went into the idea of what myOwl could do for them. And every one of them seemed, excited about it and said, well, can we subscribe to it now? Is it ready now? I need this in my house now. And it was a really positive sort of feedback. And we got very excited about it and sort of, kept pushing forward. But it's like a lot of ed tech companies, there's not just one stakeholder. There's, it's not just the students, it's also the parents, and it's also the schools, and it's the teachers. And so there's a bunch of different groups. And so we had this one element where the students and the parents were interested, and the teachers were interested, but we were trying to get the schools, and that was proving to be difficult. Not because necessarily they didn't like the idea, but we're a small company. myOwl doesn't rhyme with Google. And so, if we did, then people would say, sure, let's hear what you have to say. And people would be with it. It was really tough message to get across to a company of people because we couldn't have. And so that was something that we struggled mightily with. It was one of the main reasons. One of the main reasons that I decided to go into this.
Hey, Brent, I don't mean to interrupt here, but John, is Brent's mic kind of acting funny to you? Yeah. Something, you were working, you were loud and clear, and then it trailed off. So
but I heard the gist. As he tests that back, I want to respond to what Brent said, because I think it's really interesting. And it is the research question, right? One of the things that I think Brent did really well was a lot of customer discovery and stakeholder assessments. Not only was he focused on key stakeholders and figuring out the value proposition, but doing that not in a peripheral way, but in a super intentional way. The research shows that those ed tech products that are super engaging, great design, great UI, great UX, pedagogically aligned or stakeholder aligned, which it sounds like myOwl is and has been, and easy to adopt. I think, Brent, in the last conversation, you talked about interoperability and it being, something that makes its way through 143 apps that you had mentioned that students have to use. And how do you have this be the one app and how is it interoperable? I love that. I love that you're thinking it through and really doing a thorough job with customer discovery, and that you've taken that to a new level and incorporated that into your strategic plan.
Is the sound?
You were there for a second.
You know what? Why don't let's try this.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
You're good.
Is that, no,
I think you got that. You got that beautiful microphone.
Yeah, well, it's technical. Apparently, it doesn't work. So, can you hear me okay?
Beauty is pain.
But you can hear me.
Yeah. Yes,
Perfect.
We can hear you. Go ahead, Brent. You can respond, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it is the research side of it, and actually I was talking to Josh a little bit about this earlier, is something that I know, John, is very important to you, and it's important to us as well. And we are aligned sort of, in terms of the product itself for the end user, and think that will make their lives easier. The research side of it, I'd be curious to pick your brain a little bit on is, you mentioned the 143 different apps that kids have to use. And there's this statistic that the co-founder of Seesaw uses a lot, which is that it takes kids about 20% of their time just to get into the apps they need to use to do their work, whether that's classwork or homework. It's 20% of their time. So imagine someone in the professional world who has to use, on average, 143 different tools to do their job. And right off the bat, you're at 80% productivity because 20% of your time is spent getting into that. So you look at the numbers for assessments, and they're not great. And I just saw something this morning that said that 26% of 8th graders are proficient in math, just 26. And when you look at Black students, that drops down to 9%. And so for us on the research side of things, we have a theory that if you give students a tool that will help them manage all of this homework, not have things get lost, and have everything in front of them, that they will do better in school. And so what we want to do where we are now is sort of take a baseline of where grades are, and then take another snapshot a year from now and use that data to see if there's any improvement in their grades and in their assessments. I don't think that we're going to we're not going to take that 26% of 8th graders and get it to 100%. But if we can help them in any sort of way, that's where on the research side where we're hoping that will come into play.
Bingo. I think that's great. And I think the research shows that if you're intentional about that, you're going to have success. So it can't just be engaging and easy to adopt. It also has to be aligned pedagogically. It also has to show that if students use this through the lens of student agency, right? And I love that students are being proprietors of their own education, that it actually leads to an outcome with 70% of our students not reading at grade level, 70% of our students not performing math at grade level, and it even being worse with the most underrepresented students. If you can show over a month, over 3 months, over a semester, over a year, that by using this intentionally over that period of time, sustained over time, that there actually is a specific outcome that you can quantify, I think you have a great chance of more renewals, more logos that you can acquire with school districts and schools, and overall satisfaction that will lead to sustained competitive growth.
That is, the research part is certainly an important part. And another part that Brent has begun to embrace, I'm pulling him along a little bit, is the credibility building in LinkedIn, and letting people know that while you don't have a degree in education, you're becoming a subject matter expert clearly in this game of homework. And so, Brent, can you talk about your experience first, maybe not being into LinkedIn, but what you have learned about in terms of the power of LinkedIn / just building credibility around the successes that you guys are having?
Yeah. So, social media is not something that I'm a big fan of. I'm happy that you finished the Wordle in 2 tries, but just call me and let's catch up, right? Like I don't need to read about it on social media. And so I've never been one who has posted much. I think Talia, her the day she was born might be the last time I posted something on something other than LinkedIn. And that was an area where, John, we've entered into the Milken competition a couple of times. And I suspect anyway, that one of the things that your panel of judges will do is, because one of the questions in there is put your LinkedIn profile. And if you had gone to my LinkedIn profile, you would have seen basically nothing. There was no banner. There were no hashtags. There wasn't even an about me section. It was bare bones at best. And it did not look like someone who was a legitimate player in the field. And that was something that I, through, Josh and the 3E experience, I saw the value in needing to update that and to change that. And you're right, I don't have a degree in education. However, I've got 3 kids and I've got, 30 some odd years of combined experience being frustrated with homework. And so I think I have plenty to say about the subject and to talk to you from a parent's perspective on what's working and what isn't and why myOwl can be a solution. But you're not going to even get to that conversation with me if you had looked at my LinkedIn profile. It's still probably not great, but I'm working on it. It's a daily thing.
Well, I think you've got a great coach. I think you've got a great coach. And I think that the intentionality behind your messaging and behind your positioning is critically important. So kudos to you for doing that. Value proposition is really important in terms of being very clear about what problem you're solving and how you're solving it with measurable outcomes. And again, the ease of adoption, the ease of use, I think is critically important. I'm totally with you on that, but I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a combined integration of all of those aspects. I think your product has to be really well designed and super engaging. I think the company has to be really well positioned across social media and LinkedIn. And I think the user experience has to come back with it being, more aspirin, not vitamins, like solving a real pain point instead of it just being a nice to have.
Yeah.
And John, I wanted to just kind of ask from your perspective, and maybe you can, let's look at the Milken finalists, for example. How many of those folks or people that you encounter on a daily or weekly basis when you have your office hours are kind of in Brent's position? I wasn't a teacher. I don't have an education background, but I believe I can solve a challenge that I have seen in education through my experience as a parent or a teacher.
So it's a great question. And there's 3 prongs to the support we provide companies like and entrepreneurs like Brent. One is the business fundamentals, which includes market positioning and a lot of the things that you do so well in terms of how to position or how to create a signature solution that has bite. What is the problem? What is the solution? TAM, SAM, SOM. Key value proposition. Is it best price? Are you selling on price? Are you selling on product? Are you selling on customer intimacy? We do a lot of work with value proposition. We have a lot of educators turned entrepreneurs that need the business basics like I just named. The lean canvas being really strongly rooted in a best practice. So we do a lot of that with entrepreneurs like Brent. In Brent's case, obviously not an education background, but we do work with a lot of educators turned entrepreneurs. Second is this idea of research to practice. When we look at myOwl, is it rooted in best practice? A more engaged parent leads to a higher achieving student. A more agency-bound student leads to a higher performing student. There is seminal research that supports that. And when Brent brings this solution out to educators who are thinking of purchasing it, or parents who are thinking of purchasing it, or whoever in the stakeholder world is thinking about acquiring it, he's going to need to name the research or substantiate it through foundational research, in my opinion. Beyond that, in terms of research to practice, is the evaluative model, how he is evaluating outcomes. I love that he's thinking of literacy and math, that if a student is really using this on a residual or on a sustained basis, that there could be an impact in the two highest profile areas of education right now, and that is math and literacy and reading. So that's two. And then third is your typical matchmaking. Brent, who would come to us and we would say, where is your biggest need? Is it positioning? Is it LinkedIn profiling? Is it developing the tech? Is it fundraising? Is it working with an expert like Josh on product positioning and lead generation, brand positioning and lead generation? And that's the sort of the anatomy of a working relationship with a successful mentee, and how we've worked with our 25 semifinalists and 7 finalists over the last 6 months.
I almost feel like this conversation, Brent, I hope I'm not overstepping here, is kind of coming full circle, because Brent met us, John, Josh, through a online event through University of Pennsylvania. I think we were talking about the Milken semifinalists or finalists. We were kind of talking about people coming to the online event. That was when, kind of a little post-COVID. And that's how I met Brent. And of course, we started talking immediately about hockey and the Capitals, and went straight away from what we needed to be talking about. And I
Not
think
the Flyers.
We would never talk about the Flyers. And then I think, Brent, over the last couple of years, like, I'm not going to say like you have been frustrated, but of course you would like to get some traction in Milken and be up there, right? And maybe at this point, because you need to tell us about the schools that have signed on, you're going to get some of that research, and maybe that's that next level that John and the group, and I happen to be a judge as well, but I would never be judging myOwl because I would recuse myself, are looking for. Does it kind of feel like 360 for you?
Who's the you, me or John?
For you,
for me,
Brent.
definitely. I mean, it's you're exactly right. That was where it was one of the first sort of ed tech events that I had attended, and it was online, and it was a virtual sort of networking opportunity at the end where you go and sit at these little tables, and up pops a video, and we connected there, and it's been history ever since. So yes, I would very much like to be involved more with Penn and Milken and those, the traction side of it. I wouldn't limit myself to that. I'm looking for traction everywhere. I'm looking for schools, and I'm looking for teachers and parents and students to get out here and use this and improve some of these theories that we have. So it's an exciting time right now for us. We have a lot of momentum, and it's really fun.
And full circle moments, Josh, you should know it's entrepreneurs like Brent who have provided our own customer discovery to know what we need to do to be able to serve him and others well. And so that was really the guiding principle behind the launch of catapult.gse.upenn.edu, and our advanced membership, so /advanced-membership. That's catapult.gse.upenn.edu, which is a 6-month accelerator program that addresses the pain points that an entrepreneur like Brent may sense and feel. First, an assessment is taken, a 30-minute assessment to determine where Brent is on the continuum related to leadership, product, market, and finance. When he discovers that he's okay in leadership and he's okay in product because he's built a great product with his daughter, his co-founder, and he's okay on fundraising maybe, but he needs work in market, that's where our strategic advisors like you, Josh, come in and can provide some really good structure in how he needs to build that out. Some entrepreneurs need support in all 4 areas. Some entrepreneurs are totally fine in 3, but need to be focused in 1. Self-paced standalone process, getting advanced member support in each of those 4 areas, taking it on at their own time at their own pace. because we know founders like Brent are busy. Anybody wants to check that out, the assessment's great. It's not expensive. And we do provide full service support in that area.
Yeah, obviously it's a gold standard what you guys are doing. And so pretty cool to hear that you guys are listening to folks like Brent as he kind of climbs this ladder. And I feel like, Brent, having worked with you through the Ed Sales Elevation experience and over the last couple of years, you went up a couple rungs over the last couple of months. And so can you talk about the most recent success of myOwl, the speaking engagement, getting into those schools, the hamburgers that we ate together, things like that?
Well, so let me just speak to the catapult thing, which one of the things that I find very attractive about catapult and things like that is that despite my youthful appearance, I am not 20 something living on my mom's couch. I'm a first time founder with a mortgage and 3 kids, and I don't know what I don't know. And so I need to be able to rely on other people and programs like Catapult to help me answer those questions or ask those questions that I don't know to ask. So I thought I would add that in there because that's something I think that would, John, when you're talking to other companies, other entrepreneurs, that's something that I think would be a huge draw for me, is the ability to help me ask those questions I don't know to ask.
Yeah.
So with regard to the last, couple of months, last 6 months or so, it has been a bit of a rocket ship ride. It's been great. I mean, in order for myOwl to function the way that we have it designed it to function, we have to have integrations with all of these different tools that these kids have to use. Because we use the API integrations for that interoperability to bring everything into the student dashboard that we've created. And that was another area where we struggled with, was creating those integrations. Again, if we were a larger company, people might, be more interested in talking to us, but they were trying to figure out, it's a resource question. People have to, that's something on our side resources, it's something on their side on resources. And there are only so many resources to go around, and people were not all that enthusiastic about integrations with us. And we can talk a little bit more when we get to 3E and the alumni group, but there's a company out there called EdLink, which I'm still working on trying to get a T-shirt from them because I'm like their #1 fan. If you go to their website, it says that you didn't get into ed tech for integrations, we did. And at that point, I proposed to everyone who works there. I'm still waiting for a yes, but it was something that, allowed us, you make one universal API integration with EdLink, and all of a sudden you're integrated with 20, 25 of the top LMS and SIS companies out there. And so for us, we've always had people who are interested in myOwl, but then we would say, okay, well, we'd get a school or a district who would say they want to do it. And we'd say, okay, great. Well, now we just need to integrate with everybody. It might take us a year or more to get all these integrations. How's your attention span? And no one has an attention span, a 2-year attention span. So for us to be able to have made this partnership with EdLink, where we can have these integrations that we desperately needed, now we have schools and who are saying we want to do this, and we say, okay, well, how's November look for you? Does that work? That alone is just a massive thing. And I want them to integrate with everybody we need to integrate with, and do it like overnight. So because they're fantastic, and it's been great working with them. With regard to the speaking engagement, that's something we were all out in California for, the Innovators Education Conference that Ernie Delgado put together. And burgers, yes, I do not step foot in California without immediately stopping at In-N-Out. It is a requirement. It has to be done. And so we satisfied that requirement and took care of that. But it was a really good opportunity for us to get in front of a very strong group of teachers, principals, superintendents, educators, and tell them our story. and Talia was with me, and she did a great job talking about the student side of things, and I went into the parent side, and then we were able to make some connections there that have already you know borne some fruit. And there's one private school in Phoenix, um, the North Valley Christian Academy, that's going to pilot for us this fall, which I'm super excited about. And we are also in some conversations with folks up in your neck of the woods, John, up in Delaware County, just north of Philly. And they were also at the event out in LA, and they represent 15 different school districts up there in Delaware County. And they seemed very excited about myOwl and would like for Talia and I to come up and present to their folks up there as well. So we've gone from no integrations and no pilots to a pilot in DC with a private school that I made the connection through you, Josh, and now this school in Phoenix, and hopefully up in Delaware County as well. So I do not want 2024 to end, because it's just going really well right now, and I'm not ready to turn the calendar. So let's just kind of slow things down a little bit.
That's awesome. I love the folks at EdLink. ClassLink is another organization. The idea of LTI integration, LTI Advantage, and LTI Learning Technology Interoperability integration is so key. I'm so glad that you have that bug, Brent, because a lot of people are like, yeah, but it just looks really great, and the product is really usable. But once they get into single sign-on and ensuring that it's easy to adopt, they kind of fall off and they don't make that investment. So I'm going to make sure you get a T-shirt, by the way. The fact that you really recognize the power and importance of interoperability and usability is super key. So signature solution, value proposition, how to package and position your products and services so they sell with more ease, getting in front of the right people, and being able to convey and prove the value, the efficacy conversation. The thing that I want to also credit you with and say that I think is going to be a strategic, a key, critical success factor is the idea of co-construction and co-creation. So in meeting with a lot of potential buyers, being able to say that we're not going to throw this at you and just use it, but having them play with it and asking them what would make this even better. What additional analytics would there need to be in order for you to find more value in it? What would we have to do to drive more agency for students to be able to find more value in it? What could be a good parent database or a parent analytics dashboard that would give them more value? You asking those critical questions, I think, is a path to more sales, a path to more renewals, a path to more upsells. And it sounds like you're really being intentional in that area as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned the parent dashboard, and I mean, there are a couple of elements that we briefly touched on the student dashboard, but one of the things that I have found to be that people are most excited about on the parent side is the parent dashboard that we've created. So one of the biggest arguments that parents have with their kids is over this question of missing assignments. And I'll look at my kids' grades, and they won't be where they should be, and I'll ask them why, and they say, I don't know. And so we'll go and we'll look at the app that shows their grades, and it'll say there's 12 missing assignments. And I'll say, well, okay, well, here's the problem. You have 12 zeros. So that's going to bring your grades down. I turn those in, no. Anyway, long story short, it's this sort of battle about trying to figure that out. And so we did create a parent dashboard that will show the student dashboard. So a lot of parent apps out there are not very effective. And what we've done is we've created a parent dashboard that shows exactly what the kid sees, and I can see exactly what's been submitted. And I can then move on to the 17 million other things I need to do that night, rather than worry about the homework. And the other part that we didn't talk much about yet, but that goes into your research side of things, is there's a whole bunch of research out there that talks about gamification and how that motivates kids and gets them more engaged, right? The student engagement right now is at an all-time low. And so we've gamified the homework side of it to help bring that motivation side up a little bit more. So I think all of those things together will help us when we have those conversations that you're describing about co-creating and things like that.
Amazing. I think that leveling up and leaderboards and points and compulsion loops, I really am a big believer in. Student does something, a parent does something, and there's something that pops up, says, great job. You're really, in it to win it. So using some of the gaming modalities to drive engagement, I think is important. Dr. Robert Kenny from Florida Gulf Coast University. Dr. Robert Kenny does a lot in doing an analysis, research-based analysis on game-based learning through the use of points, rewards, leveling up, short form and long form gaming. It's not just, you do something and you get a point. How is the gamification embedded into the user experience intentionally? So there's a lot of research in there that says that if you do gamification intentionally, it'll drive motivation and ultimately results.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question. So Brent, clearly we have positioned you well from the Ed Sales Elevation experience to have the conversations that John is describing by the Raise Your Hand campaign. And the Raise Your Hand campaign, John and I guess Penn have helped me shape that in terms of how we teach it, which is really listening to people, not trying to sell to them, and people potentially who you have never worked with. So not current clients or former clients or friends of John's or mine or anybody. They're people who really haven't heard of you and you listen to them. So that's the Raise Your Hand campaign. So you're positioned to do that. But the question I wanted to ask John was, when I was building Flex Academies, I had a business partner. And I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but she didn't like to send surveys because she didn't want to get responses from parents who would say, we want underwater basket weaving at our school, and we could never deliver that unless we went down to, some pool or the Potomac River. So where is the line that Brent and everybody has to find between asking all of these questions and receiving this feedback and then saying we can do this or we can't, not wanting to disappoint somebody who gives them that feedback? And how do you respond to a school that says, or a parent that says, we want this laundry list of things, and how do you respond to them without disappointing them?
It's a great question. I think the rule is, and we've talked about this, be interested, not interesting, and be prepared. So it's a both and. Interested, not interesting. Being able to ask those critical questions is what is important. I would say that if you are afraid of learning that basket weaving or underwater snorkeling is what's going to come back and you're worried about what you can't provide, what about what somebody provides that you can provide and becomes an aha moment to really differentiate your solution? In my major exit, we were all about parental engagement to start, which is a more engaged parent leads to a higher achieving student. But then we started doing our surveys and asking the critical questions and learning that attendance notification was critically important and could be turned into a profit center for school districts. And so we started developing applications to try to come up with automated daily attendance calls. And that just shot our business to the moon. So being interested, not interesting, I think is important. Incorporating an inquiry mindset into your strategic plan, I think is critically important. And being prepared. So Brent being on the front lines of, if I want to be a major player in Delaware County, I better have read all of the strategic plans of those school districts where I'm targeting so that I know how they're thinking about parental or community engagement, how they're thinking about student-centered learning, how they're thinking about homework hotlines and homework applications that are going to drive performance in the classroom. So I think it's both being interested and being inquiry-minded and having a sense of what the strategic drivers are, and then threading the needle when you're having those conversations that will hopefully lead to closes with those school districts and those school systems.
Right.
Yeah. Then you said that I'd be curious. I suspect I know where it is, but I mean, startups it's a notoriously precarious business, right? I mean, startups fail at a ridiculous rate, and I don't even want to know what the number is because it'll just freak me out. But I wonder if you look at the number of people who choose not to be interested, what's their rate of failure? To me, that it just seems like such a, if the answer is, why don't you do underwater basket weaving, then you should try to figure out how to do that. Like if you don't know that's what they want and you're just choosing to keep your head in the sand, I can't imagine, that your success rate is going to be very high.
I too am not a spring chicken, 54-year-old white male, and started my career doing ed tech sales and building ed tech companies when I was in my mid 20s, late 20s. So I've had a lot of battle scars and learned this lesson, with a lot of scars and a lot of pain myself, Brent. And I would say that one of the lessons that I learned very, very early is I knew I had a great product. I think myOwl is a great product. And I knew I could pitch it selling ice to Eskimos. But the moment that I would go in and start really waving my arms and showing the value of my parental engagement platform, I'll never forget, I was stopped by a superintendent saying, "This is the greatest product that I've ever seen. I would never buy it because you didn't ask me about myself. You didn't bother to find out about who I was." And I learned a very valuable lesson to not only present a product that has value, but also be insightful and sensitive and humble with getting to know who's in the room, asking the critical questions. And I work with entrepreneurs in that way. That's just a simple rule to learn. And if you get really strong with, hey, I noticed that number 3.4.6 in your strategic plan was being really intentional about polling parents and coming up with actionable insights and being able to deliver those insights and telling parents that you're actually doing that. Would it be okay if I showed you how myOwl does that? Is a lot better than saying, here's the first feature, here's the second feature, here's the third feature. Do you want to buy it?
I mean, Josh, I think we just found our chief marketing officer for myOwl. So I'm pretty excited about being on this call here with you guys.
If you can get him as your CMO, you got yourself a great CMO. And not only that, but if he's able to do, these conversations for myOwl and has the light streaming in on him, looks like there's this.
Yeah, that is impressive.
The sun is just coming in on Golden Gamba there. That's really helpful.
You see, I'm struggling.
I think it's good. I think it's good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask a question, John, that you and I haven't talked about, but I think you maybe alluded to it just now. I have become very allergic to demos. And I talked to a lot of folks through the Ed Sales Elevation experience, and they do, a little discovery call, 15, 20 minutes, and then they roll a little discovery of 15 minutes, and then they roll into a demo, death by demo, 30, 45 minutes showing off what they've got. So can you talk to us about your stance on demos? Would you do it live? Would you do it recorded? Would you do it at all? Or what are you thinking about demos? Because Brent clearly has a product in myOwl that maybe should be demoed in one way or another.
Great question. I love this question. And no, you haven't asked me this.
I haven't.
I have a very strong opinion.
My allergy is growing. That's why.
I actually am a big believer in demos, but doing demos right. And here's how I feel doing demos right is. Back to my advice. It's not, I'm John Gamba. I've been in ed tech for this long. I have this product. Can I show you it? It's, here's what I hope to convey in this meeting, starting with first, how parental engagement is typically done. Seesaw, Parent Square, hosting, and being able to show them and say that's how you're typically doing it now. Is that right? Giving them an opportunity to say, yeah, and we love Parent Square, we love Seesaw, we love. What if I told you you could do it this way? Would that take that experience to the next level? Let them lean in. Oh, that would be really great if you took what Parent Square does, consolidate through AI actionable insights, give me those actionable insights, and allow me through a tool to be able to send that out. I've actually done this with executives at Parent Square. Would that help? Yeah, that would really help, especially if you did it this and that way. What I'd like to show you is how we think about delivering on that promise. Would it be okay if I showed you a little bit about that? Such a different nuance than just jumping right into a demo and showing how it may differentiate from the competition. It's a guided, facilitated conversation, getting them to lean in on saying, I love that about them. I love that about how we're using, but yes, if you could incorporate this, and that would be a game changer for me. Once they say that and you can show that you're actually going to deliver on that promise, that's what I call the assumptive sell, the assumptive presentation. What if I could? Imagine if we could do it a different way, if I could deliver something like this. And you know what the magic is, Josh and Brent, is if you can do that and then say at the end when you know you got them, and we're working on X, Y, and Z. If we delivered that in a few months, would that be helpful? And would you be willing to help us design that in a spirit of co-creation or a spirit of co-construction? Now you get their agency and their buy-in to be a proprietor and say, wow, I can use this now, which really fulfills a need. And they're thinking about extended tools, AI, machine learning, personalization, applications. And I can weigh in and I can be a part of the future design of that. Man, that to me is a recipe for success in consultative sales.
You know, Josh, I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I share that allergy. And that's because, you know, a lot of what we see, you know, whether it's LinkedIn or your email inbox gets flooded with these, oh, I noticed your, you know, myOwl is in homework. Well, we specialize in building fences. I'm like, okay, so you really have no idea what we do. But you want to show me, you want me to hop on a 30-minute call with you or something. And so, but if you take the approach, John, that you just described and then build in, you know, sort of that homework side of it that you talked about, look at those strategic plans, know like where you can sort of guide that conversation. That to me is, I agree that I would absolutely want to see a demo. I don't care about your fences. You clearly don't know what I do for a living. But if someone comes to me and has done their homework and wants to sort of build on it the way John described, I wouldn't have that same allergy.
And so does that change your approach to what you've previously been doing, Brent, or have you already been doing that? Because a lot of what John described is what we hope to get and use from the Ed Sales Elevation experience. So what is your approach?
So it's definitely more along the lines of the way that John described it. In my previous life, current/previous life, I get paid to deal with people, you know, relationship management type stuff and membership and things like that. And so I feel like I'm sort of well versed in this world of listening and trying to understand where your pain points are. And I think, honestly, I think that allergy to the marketing, the sort of blast marketing stuff also helps with that, because I don't want that in my life. I'm not going to put it in yours. And so I think that your Ed Sales Elevation experience helped me fine tune the message. I do think that I was already was taking that approach. You know, for us, it hasn't, we didn't have a demo to show to people. We had concepts and things like that. Now we do, but so some of that was timing, but I don't know. Does that answer your question?
No, totally. It definitely does. You know, it's we talk about that selling, especially in the education space, has to be very personal. You know, not to take anything away from somebody who sells cars. My buddy, you know, Chris Kennedy owns a bunch of dealerships up in Pennsylvania. I mean, it's a really tough business, and he's very good at it, and his crew is great. But this is very different. It's a very different way of having to sell, and it's not the approach is not to convince people. It's really to earn their trust and show them your credibility and have that research. And as John said, it's got to come from all angles. So I think that answer from John, which again, this is something we truly haven't talked about when it comes to demo, makes perfect sense. Totally aligned with it. And we'll have to cut that and share that, because I really want people to kind of, I think you expressed better than I could my allergy towards demos. And I've always wondered, could we install something on the person who's receiving the demo on their computer and see how much are they actually listening? Are they even watching it? So, but that is what John has described is a very interactive, interested approach to a demo. Is that accurate?
Be interested, not interesting. Talk with, not at the prospect. So critical. Engage them early and often to get them talking about how they're currently doing things. And if we could show you that you could do it this way, would that be valuable? Yes. Ask them again, if we could do that, would that be valuable? What I'm about to show you is to build on the things that are going well with what you're currently using, but something that will allow you to save more time, save more energy, save more costs, being able to do more with less. Those kinds of conversations I think are critical.
Cool. This has been a really good discussion. We've talked about myOwl. We've talked about University of Pennsylvania and the Graduate School of Education and Milken. And we've also really kind of gone deep on some theory stuff. So I appreciate all that. I want to turn it over to Brent as we kind of get ready to wrap up here. Talk to us about, the future of myOwl. Talk to us about, what our audience can do to help you in terms of spreading the good word of myOwl.
Wow. Okay. In 40 characters or less, something like that.
Yeah. You got 9 minutes. Don't take them all. So
right now we are launching 2 pilots in the fall with the potential for one more. Talia pitched the idea to her own principal, and so here in Arlington, and we're as close as we've ever been with getting them on board. So we're excited about that. Possibly bringing in Delaware County, either, later this year or first part of next year. So this academic year is going to be devoted to pilots and sort of validating what we have and getting feedback from people, continuing to build the integrations that we need to build, so that we can look towards the next academic year, to really, hang out our shingle and start working with school districts. The schools and the school districts are our customers, and so we're the ones that we want. They're the ones that we want to bring aboard, as paid customers starting in the fall of next year. Getting in touch with us. I mean, right now we're looking for. I mean, the list is long, right? I mean, we're still looking to talk to schools and teachers and parents and students and make sure that what we're building is what they need. We're looking for schools to pilot with us. We're looking to make these integrations that we need to make with companies that EdLink doesn't have a relationship with. So there are a number of different things that if anyone out there has ideas about would be great. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us, my email is just brent@getmyowl.com. If you go to our website at getmyowl.com, there's a video on there that Talia narrates and kind of walks you through the product and how it works. And there are some places in there where you can link directly to go to LinkedIn, or you can sign up on our list for more information. So there's a lot of different avenues out there.
Cool. I'm going to bring this full circle. Every time since 1992, I can remember this more recently, that the Super Bowl ends, Redskins fans pop up and say, all right, we're ready for next year. All right. So let's not get into football. Let's not get into NFC East. But John, let's turn the page on the Milken competition that just was. And it's basically time to get ready for next year's Milken competition. And I think you're looking at somebody who I'm going to push to apply again. So can you make a pitch for Brent and all the other folks? It's time to begin to think about applying.
Definitely. It's definitely time. But before you apply, come set up an EIR session with me. Ask, be interested, not interesting about your product. What would differentiate us as a competitor? We're really intentional about looking at game-changing platforms that are competitively differentiated, have a very strong team, have some traction, address some of the things that Brent talked about. What are you doing to support underrepresented individuals, underrepresented students, underrepresented communities? And most importantly, how are you leveraging the latest research to substantiate your logic model or substantiate your value proposition? When Brent does that well, I like myOwl's chances.
That's awesome. Cool. Paul King joined us. Thank you, Paul, for joining us, who's about to have his first kid, or maybe did a day or two ago. So I know he's getting ready for that. And so, Paul, nice to see you here. Paul happens to be a fellow Phillies fan with you, John. Good dude. And he's doing some really good stuff in tutoring. So this is the
Go Phils, go Birds.
Okay, fine. This is the community that we have. It's a really good one. Really, I always tell people this, and I mean it. We have had 83, give or take, companies go through the Ed Sales Elevation experience, and I would have a beer with every single member of those companies. Some I'd have more beers with than others, but everybody's like a good person. They're supportive. Look at Paul's like, good luck to Brent. And John's giving this advice and is coming off a huge week, but he made it in. And Brent, you just stumbled all in. Oh, it's a boy. And guess what? Paul didn't know going in. Neither did we. And he says, go Phils. But it's a boy. Which is
and Harper King sounds like a pretty good name.
Yeah, Paul, sleep is overrated. Just know that.
Oh, don't we all know it?
Right. Thank you guys for joining. Brent, you guys are on the way there, and that John and I and everybody else around.
Yeah, Brent, reach out. Let's sit down. Let's look at past applications. Look at the platform. Ask a lot of critical questions.
That'd be great.
One of our Milken champions in 2022 wrapped their final pitch and their video. What about your daughter wrapping the presentation and getting the judge's attention that way? Could she do it?
Yeah, we'll have to. Maybe we can figure out a way to do it with soccer. I don't know that she'd do the rapping part, but maybe we can bring soccer into it somehow.
Let's incorporate her into the presentation because she did crush it in LA, and she's a meaningful part and a differentiated part of the value of myOwl. So let's keep it going.
Thank you, Brent, for being here. Thank you, John, for being here. Thank you, Paul, minus your Philly stuff. Thank you for being here. And I know there's a lot of other people who have joined us through LinkedIn, through Facebook, and through Instagram. We appreciate everybody.
Schwarbomb King. I love that.
On that note, everybody.